Hi, welcome to the Angular and Spring Boot CRUD tutorial. In this video, we're going to filter the expenses based on the expense name. So let's begin. So the goal is to create a text box inside this list expenses view template, and we're going to filter the expenses based on the expense name. So let's do that. So let's go to the Visual Studio Code, and first, before creating the text box, we are going to create an object inside the list expenses TS file. Inside the object, we're going to keep all the filters. So let's go ahead and create an object. So I'm going to call this filters. You can give any name you want. I'm going to call this filters. Inside this, first we're going to create a single property which is keyword, and I'm going to set this to an empty string. Later we're going to create one more property which is sort by for sorting the expenses. For now, let's keep it simple. We're going to create a single property which is keyword, and we're going to initialize it to an empty string. So let's save this, and now let's go ahead and create a text box inside the view template. So inside the view template, at the very top, we are going to create a text box. Input type is equal to text box, and we are going to make use of the Angular two-way data binding, which is ng model, and we're going to access the keyword. So filters dot keyword, and also we're going to provide a name. I'm going to call this keyword, and also we're going to attach an event, because when the user types on this text box, we have to capture the text box value. For that, we're going to attach an input event, and we're going to call a method which is filter expenses. Of course, this method doesn't exist. We're going to create that in a bit. We're attaching a event which is input event, and we're going to call the filter expenses method. So before saving this, let's go ahead and define this method. So inside the TS file, at the very end, we are going to create filter expenses, and inside this, we're going to log to the console. We're going to log the filters. Let's actually this dot filters. So let's save this, and let's go ahead and save the view template as well. So let's save this. Now what we need to do is, let's go to the browser and test our work. Of course, we have not done anything. First, let's actually see whether it is printing in the console or not. So let's go to the developer tools and go to the console and clear this out. And inside this text box, first let's type a single character which is B, and you can see it is printing keyword which is B. So when I type U, it is going to print BU. When I type yes, it is going to print BUS. So each time the user types, it is going to take the latest value from the text box, and once we get the text box value, we can filter the expenses array. So let's do that. First, let's close this out, and let's go to the Visual Studio Code, and let's go to the TS file. And what we need to do is, we are going to call this filter expenses method inside the list expenses method. I'm going to tell you in a bit why we are doing like this. So instead of assigning the data to this dot expenses array, we are going to assign the filter expenses. Inside this filter expenses, we're going to write a logic for filtering the expenses, and once we get the filtered array, we are going to assign it to this dot expenses array, and this dot expenses array, we are going to print it in the view template. That's what we are doing it. Okay, so let's remove this data, and we're going to call this dot filter expenses, and to this filter expenses, we're going to pass the data. This data we will be getting from the service. So this data is nothing but expenses list, an array of expenses. So let's pass the data, and inside this filter expenses, we are going to receive the list of expenses. I'm going to call this expenses, which is of type expense array. Okay, now let's get rid of this lock statement, and now what we can do is, of course, we are assigning this return value to this dot expenses. Why we are getting this error is because we are not returning anything as of now. So let's go ahead and return the statement return, and we are going to access this expenses dot, we are going to call a filter method, and this filter is an array method. What it will do is, it is going to loop through the list of expenses or the array items, and each time the loop runs, it is going to take a single expense object. So when the loop runs, it is going to take a single expense object. I'm going to call this E, and we're going to make use of the JavaScript arrow function, and inside this we are going to again return a value. So E dot, we are going to access the description, because not the description, the expense, because we have to compare expense title. We are filtering with the expense title name, so that is why we are going to access the expense, E dot expense, and we're going to convert this into a two lowercase, and then we're going to call includes method, and inside this includes method we are going to pass the text box value. So filters dot keyword, and again we're going to convert this keyword to a lowercase. Okay, so now what we'll do is, each time the loop runs, where it is going to take the single expense object and it is going to compare with the text box value. If the condition matches, then it is going to return that single expense object, and single object we are going to add it to the expense array. That is what we are doing here. Okay, so now let's save this, and now all we need to do is we have to call this list expenses method inside the view template. So let's go to this, and instead of filter expenses we are going to call the least expenses. Let's save this. We are getting some error inside this console. Yeah, now it is fine. So let's save this, and let's go to the view template. Let's actually filter something. We're going to filter the monitor. Let me type M, and you can see now it is filtering the records. It is filtering for the keyword it matches. Right now when we type M, it is available only in the monitor and the washing machine. Okay, so let's say now if I type O, it is going to filter only the monitor, because the text matches with the monitor itself. Let me remove O. Now you can see again it matches with these two records, monitor and washing machine. If I remove this, it is going to match all the records. So let's try with the headphone. So if I type H, it is going to filter the keyword H. So inside the washing machine we have a H, inside the headphone we have a H. If I start typing HI, it is going to filter only for the washing machine. So if I remove I, it is going to filter the washing machine and the headphone. So if I type HE, it is going to filter the headphone. So now we are able to filter the expenses based on the title. So that's all about this video. In the next video, we are going to sort the expenses based on the amount and the title. So that is coming up in the next video. I will see you in the next video.